I think is the best thing for yourself is to be able to understand your own mind and how you can function properly in this world. And I always try to understand myself, and I try to understand what does it mean, a proper sacrifice. Because I listen almost all lectures from Jordan Peterson, and I was trying to understand what does he mean by proper sacrifice. And I think we all have the idea of proper sacrifice within us. It's just we don't acknowledge that idea. We don't want to articulate this idea to ourselves, because once you articulate it, you have to make this proper sacrifice. And I understood this about myself as well, and it took me years to gather the courage and enough reasoning to make it, because we all have certain addictions in our life that help us to numb ourselves against reality, against truth, of our own self, where you truthfully see who you are and what you're capable of, because once you see this, you have to take more responsibility. But when you numb yourself constantly with your addictions, you kinda ignoring your true self, and therefore you always justify not to take extra responsibility upon your shoulders because you numb yourself with your addictions. And numb people, they're not fully conscious, and if you're not fully conscious, you kinda doesn't have much of moral understanding of the environment around you, and therefore you're unable to make a proper sacrifice, although deep inside you understand what this sacrifice is all about. But once you make this proper sacrifice, once you fight this addiction, another scary thing is a lot of us, me included, try to substitute one addiction with another, thinking that one addiction is much worse, let me substitute it with another. For example, if you stop drinking alcohol, you start eating too much and get out of physical shape. My point is, when you try to fight your addiction, you shouldn't substitute it. What you do, you have to develop discipline where you can constantly improve yourself and improve your body, also improve your mind. That's how you actually improving yourself completely, by improving your mind, by disciplining your body, and by disciplining your body, you improving your mind. It's kind of like a loop, self-recursive loop of improvement, self-recursive self-improvement in some sense. And when you start, for example, defeating your addiction, when you months away from your first steps and you kind of become a little bit successful in this, you're suddenly realizing that your numbness start disappearing, and you start discovering new things within yourself, because your focus is getting better. You became more braver. Why? Because you suddenly don't have this shame within yourself. We all know that all addictions within us create such a shame of secrecy, where we secretly ashamed of ourselves and our addictions. And once you start defeating them, you have less shame, less embarrassment for your own life. And that means that you become braver, because once you have less embarrassment and less numbness, you start realizing that you can really handle the truth. And once you have this realization that you can handle the truth, you start changing yourself to become better, braver, and more responsible human being. And I think when you work on yourself this way, you kind of defeat completely resentfulness within yourself. We have to understand, I understood this about myself as well, that we are filled with resentfulness. We are feel resentfulness, whether we like it or not. I think it's one of the normal states of humanity, because we always have these demons within us that we have to battle. And if you deny this, you're actually prone to suck up to them. And it's not fun. I know by myself this because I always one step away to reverse myself back to my bad side and I don't like it because I don't want to be embarrassed of my bad side. I don't want to be ashamed because we all in secret has some demons we don't want to propagate upon ourselves. Think about this way. You have to trust your body. You know that you're in control of your body, but if you have an addiction, you don't control your body in some sense because your body developing this schedule from living from one urge to another. That's how your body measure your life, and the same as your mind. What happens is once you satisfy your urge, you're free for some time, and that's where your mind operate your body. That's where you have common sense. But then when urges come back, you're not in control of your body anymore because your brain now wants to have dopamine boost and certain satisfaction from this urge. But once you're in control of your body, once you defeat this addiction, not exactly even defeat because you will never defeat your addiction, but you can subjugate this addiction and make a stand that you're not gonna act upon your urges. You're gonna put yourself voluntarily inside of restraints. And once you do this, you start trusting your body. And if you trust your body, you suddenly realize that there's some potential within yourself. And knowing this potential in some sense liberates you and in some sense makes you braver because you know this mechanics of your own biology. And once you know the mechanics of your own biology, once you are able to operate within your biology, you suddenly start discovering certain power within you. And that's what I mean, because you don't have embarrassment anymore and you can say whatever you want. You can try to think about everything you want. There's no restriction upon your thoughts. Once you restrain your corruption, there will be no restrictions upon your thinking process. Now you trust your own common sense because in some sense your corruption, if it's undefeated and if it's like absolutely out of control, it's corrupt your common sense as well, and you stop trusting your own common sense. And what happens is freedom itself is impossible without restraints. And that's what we got confused here, and I was confused as well. I always thought that freedom is when you can do whatever the hell you want, as soon as it doesn't hurt other people. But the problem in this idea propagate that, okay, maybe you don't hurt other people, but you hurt yourself a lot because there's no restraint within yourself and you're getting out of physical and mental shape. And what happens if you're getting out of physical and mental shape? You actually, in some sense, hurt other people as well, people who depends on you, people you should help, for example, be a man and take more responsibilities for those people around you. But you can't because you're too corrupt, because you confuse this idea of freedom. That's another thing. And because if somebody asks you for help, right, and it's really hard on you to help this someone, but you know it's the right thing to do, you can't justify the reasoning that, I don't have this opportunity to help this person, but if I would have money or if I was rich, I would help this person right away. But then you understand that something is wrong with this reasoning. It doesn't sound right. And when you start analyzing, no, you should help. Because the idea of being a man, being a decent human being, is to be able to help. If somebody asks you for help, if you feel it's the right thing to do, no matter what, even if you take such a risk, because you have to understand one thing. If you're in control of yourself, you just have to repeat to yourself, I will figure this out. Doesn't matter, I will figure this out. Now the priority to help this person because this person need help and this person asked me for help. You don't have to justify your inability. You have to have faith in your abilities. But you only can have faith in your abilities if you completely in control of your body, completely in control of your freedom, because freedom without restraint is in some sort of slavery. It's your biological slavery, because what you do, you only propagate the corruption of your body. That's what your life is. It is unrestrained freedom when you just follow your urges, one urge, another urge, and all our urges in most cases are bad for us. And the more you limit yourself, the better your life becomes, the richer your life becomes, the more meaningful your life becomes. And now you can even understand this from, like, for example, personal now, right? We figure out that personally you have to be in control of your body. And if you think about the way of being a man, if you're in control of your body, if you're in control of your urges, if you're in control of your addictions, if you defeat your addictions, and if you understand that freedom is in restraint, and then you can take a stand and protect your own country because you're able to protect your own community. A man who stands for no one will never stand for himself as well. But to be able to stand for yourself, you have to have this self. Otherwise, for who you're supposed to stand? The problem is this urges, this addiction, this unrestrained, corrupt lifestyle, what it does to you, it's create a lot of lies. And you keep lying to yourself that it doesn't matter. You know, I have this interesting idea I always notice about some people. I was always trying to understand. There are some jobs I met people I work with, and they hated their jobs. And you look at them, and these jobs just were killing them mentally. And they was always telling me, I do this because of my kids. And I couldn't understand because something didn't sound right. And I was thinking about it for a long time, and suddenly I realized, where is this edge where you sacrifice yourself for your kids or you hiding from responsibilities after your kids? Because if there's a job killing you and you stay on this job, what kind of father would you be for your child if you don't take a stand for your own life? Because where's this thin line where you're hiding from responsibilities behind this sound good notion that you do it for your kid, or you're just hiding behind your kid from responsibility of being a man? There's a really thin line, and I always try to figure this out, because if something doesn't sound right, doesn't feel right, I try to think deeply about it. That's my point, because you see, everything starts with your own self, because you have to have self to make this self as a proper sacrifice. You can't sacrifice yourself for your child if you don't have self, because all your sacrifices would be just hiding behind your kids and behind this word of sacrifice. Once you know that you have self, only then your sacrifice can be proper. All other time you're just hiding from responsibilities to create the self within yourself and make the self as a sacrificial lamb where your sacrifice is proper and where your sacrifice matters. And then and only then your child would appreciate the sacrifice later on. But if you just hide yourself behind your kids just to justify constant justification, just because you're lazy to quit this job, or because you're comfortable, or because you're just terrified. The real sacrifice is in terror sometimes, because you always have to change. When I'm changing my life constantly, I always repeat for myself David Goggins' idea that it's failure, 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 darkness, and only then light. But you have to go through millions of failures, and then you get into this darkest place of your life after this multiple failures where no hope lives. But you have to master your hope within yourself through practicing every day, grind every day. When people think about grinding, you have to understand grinding means practice. Practice your own self. Practice yourself. That's what grinding is. And you have to keep practicing no matter what. It doesn't matter that the whole world collapsing around you. What matters is you keep practicing yourself to make yourself matters. And only then you are able to make a proper sacrifice once you have self to sacrifice. Otherwise, you just hide behind something noble. Virtue signaling. That's where this idea comes from. Virtue signaling otherwise. Because if you're really a virtuous person, because virtuous person must be strong, and virtuous person doesn't have to signal. He does his or her virtuous deeds silently, without screaming from the rooftops about his virtuous deeds. And that's the whole idea. And everything starts with yourself. And to be able to discover yourself, you have to clean your house. And your house is your body. And to be able to clean your house, your body, you have to fight your addictions. And once you do, once you stop relying on this numbness that addictions provoke in you, then you will see the truth, and the truth will set you free.